I was feeling pretty happy. I have to tell you, you're just so happy inside of yourself that you don't need anything outside of you except that feeling. It's very creative. You're just turned on, and you just...
And you don't know why you're happy? There was no, like, reason that was something going on? It was just an energy?
Oh, I knew what was going on to the best of my ability, but it was years later that I really put some of the other pieces together, because it was phenomenon too. And so I went into this flower shop, and in the very back of the store was a young man, and he had been on drugs. And I stepped into the store, and he threw his arms across his face like this, and he said, "Lady, I don't know what you're on, but you're hurting me." And what that meant was, when there's a very, very high vibrational field operating, and there's a lower field, and of course with his field, with his drug use, it was irritating him. It's like, have you ever tried to hug somebody who doesn't want to be hugged? And it feels like you're burning. They feel like you're burning them. And so I can tell who they are, so I never touch them without permission.
Your light almost blinds them, in other words, sort of.
Well, you know, when you're innocent, you don't have an ego attached to this sort of thing. And ego, it needs to stay way out of the picture. Self-esteem needs to be there, and then you're doing what love would do. And that's what I was doing in that moment with this kid. I walked right up to him, and I said, "I'm here to order some flowers." And I told him the story of that's another story of what I was doing with flowers that was going to be addressing and complimenting another person that needed the acknowledgement. And he thought that was just really, really kind. And I said, "You know, this is what you could be doing with your life if you weren't involved in what it is you're doing." And so everything I told him was so intimate and personal, but at the same time empowering, that he started, the tears started running down his face. And of course, you know, he gave me incredible service and asked me if he'd ever see me again. And I said, "You know, I don't know, but I don't believe in accidents." And I said, "If you just take what's been given to you." And when this was going on, I had no idea that I actually had stepped into that psychic vibration. It happens very, very fast. And on the way home, I was in a van, and I was coming up the hill. I lived in San Juan Capistrano. And I was coming up the hill, and I heard a male voice, and it said, "I'm Michael." And I'm going, "Oh my God, now I'm really losing it." And he said, I'm Michael, the Archangel." And I hadn't studied angels, but I, of course, knew about St. Michael, and he started talking to me in specifics. These are the 3 things that are going to be happening to you in the next 48 hours to make you a believer.
Is this when you were 37?
This is when I was 37, married to an attorney who just couldn't get this
Left
at all.
brain.
Well, that didn't stop me. That didn't stop me. But
not when you're in your payoff account.
Yeah, it was such a beautiful experience, and yet there's part of your mind that has never had that experience. And so I have to feel from here to do anything that I do. And this said, go for it, listen to what he has to say. But the fact I'm hearing a male voice, and I realized it wasn't me. You know, I gave a possibility that I was actually having a spiritual experience. And you know, in 48 hours, everything that was said to me came true. So that's when I went out and synchronicities, a lot of synchronicities happened to put people in my life to give me the assistance that I needed, because I was so empathic that I started out working on healing. I have an incredible healing ability. And when I started touching people and moving energy into them, I was taking their pain onto my body. And and here I am jumping off the cliff and working with very, very ill people, not knowing how to take care of myself.
That's one of the problems with having the sensitivity and being a psychic.
Yes, it is.
You have that talent, but you can't just go out. You have to actually learn how to take care of yourself.
You have to really take care of yourself and pull yourself back a distance where you're not judging, you're not blaming, and you're really looking at a soul's essence, which is a big composite of a human being. Because if you don't do that, then how can you really help them if over on this side of you that you're doing a judgment? You do an assessment without a judgment, and then you give yourself permission to give where you feel they can use the information.
One thing I noticed you said the love that you gave, and I was reading something that Carol Mace wrote, and she said, the medical intuitive, that acts of kindness and gratitude actually, acts of love empower you.
Yes.
So that's one way. We're going to talk about with your talents and abilities, what you do, and how other people can be empowered by the things that you do.
One of the trainings that Spirit was giving me was I would be going down the street and I would be doing an errand, and I would get this calling to listen, instructions, and they would give me specific things to do. And this takes a lot of courage and a lot of faith to take and get specific instructions. You will go down the block, two blocks.
Even though you're psychic and you believe in this, it still takes an act of faith.
This was a very different platform of experience, of interfacing with strangers and being the messenger and answering their prayer. And I didn't, you don't know this, and yet you follow the instructions, and the extraordinary experience of that event on that person, let alone what was going on with me, it was so beautiful listening to the instructions. And I'll never forget this little Jewish man that was in a park in Santa Monica. And they gave me all these instructions to get to him. They gave me his age. They gave me...
When you say they...
that was working with me at the time. And they described him, what he was going to be wearing, and told me where to sit. And sure enough, Stanley sat down, and Stanley had on this little hat. And it was like a part of me moved over, and Spirit was having a very, very intimate conversation with him about his health, about his wife, and about his grandson, and that how long he was going to live and what his grandson was going to accomplish when he graduated from medical school. And Stanley and I were walking and holding, I had my arm in his arm, and people would have looked at us and thought that I was his granddaughter.
And this is the first time you met him?
Absolutely. And it was love. I mean, he loved me.
He didn't think you're, I mean, don't take this personal. Strange lady, albeit beautiful.
Oh, no, there was a vibration going on.
Comes up to a strange man.
Oh, no, he was
very
affected.
Okay.
He was
you
affected.
wouldn't have been told to do this if you were going to get a different reaction, I'm sure.
Exactly. You know, and so it just got more wonderful at every moment. And finally, we were standing at the edge of the park, which happened to be in front of this beautiful church. And he asked me if I was physically real, because he was imagining. He said, "You've been so right about everything." And he said, "And you don't realize I've prayed for the very things that you're talking about. I've been praying about that." And I said, "Well, Stanley, God answers prayer." And I said, and obviously, I said, unbeknownst to me today, I got out of bed. I live in the valley. I'm a housewife and raising children. And I said, and I was sent on a mission to have a conversation with you. And I took his hat off his head, put it on my head, because he's holding me like this. And the tears, the energy of love and the exchange was so intimate that the tears were running down his face. And he looked at me and he said, "I love you." And I said, "Stanley, God loves you and I love you too." And I said, "I will remember this for the rest of my life, that I could deliver a message that brought peace to you." And it was about he would live to see his grandson graduate from college as a doctor. It was incredible. I'm chilling right now from the top of my head to the bottom of my feet, thinking about the God presence that was with me, that gave me the courage to just be the conduit for this man.
Looking back on that, do you think of why this happened at 37? And
I was ready.
You were ready, okay. So you were born with these gifts, and there was a time when you had, because we all have to learn lessons. Doesn't matter, excuse me, I'm a little froggy. Doesn't matter how gifted we are, we still have to go through, well, sometimes we have to go through that period of learning our lessons. So maybe you had to go through some life experiences. Can you tell us what that did for you? I mean, did it make you, did it open your heart more, or did it, I don't know, did it make you more analytical? Or
I was a young woman who had loss in her life, abandonment, and some abuse. And the abuse for me was when I was